In 2008, the entire world became obsessed with a single image. Barack Obama's face, painted in bold red and blue tones, staring off into the distance. And underneath it, just one word: hope. But this wasn't just another campaign poster. It spread like wildfire. People printed it on t-shirts, glued it onto bedroom walls, turned it into street murals, banners, stickers, and protest signs. It wasn't contained to politics anymore. It escaped into culture. Millions of copies were produced, and the image started living its own life, separate from the election it came from. For many, it stopped being a piece of political design. It became a symbol, a visual shortcut for optimism, change, and a completely new era in American politics. Some even described it as something close to a modern political icon. Not just something you look at, but something you believe in. And yet behind this image of optimism, there was something almost nobody talked about at the time. A story that had nothing to do with hope at all. A story involving copyright law, hidden sources, destroyed files, and a federal investigation that would later threaten the freedom of the man who created it. Because the truth was simple and uncomfortable. The man behind the image was Shepard Fairey, a street artist already known in underground culture long before the Obama campaign. His work was everywhere in urban spaces, pasted on walls, hidden in alleyways, printed as stickers, and distributed like visual propaganda. He didn't work like a traditional designer. He worked like someone trying to hijack the visual language of politics itself. Fairey's style was aggressive, direct, and heavily influenced by propaganda aesthetics. High contrast, bold shapes, simplified human faces turned into symbols rather than portraits. His art didn't ask for attention, it demanded it. So when Barack Obama emerged during the 2008 election, something clicked for him immediately. Obama wasn't just another candidate. In the media, he was being framed as something larger, a transformational figure, a break from the past, a political reset button for the country. For Fairey, that was the moment the idea formed. Not just to depict Obama, but to turn him into an icon. But there was one fundamental issue at the center of everything that followed. Shepard Fairey had never taken a photograph of Obama. The image he based his work on already existed. It was taken by photojournalist Manny Garcia for the Associated Press. At the time, it wasn't special in any dramatic sense, just a routine press photo from a public event, one of thousands taken every day by news agencies covering the campaign. Nobody saw anything unusual in it. Nobody imagined that this exact frame would later become one of the most recognizable political images in modern history. But Fairey saw potential in it, not as a photograph, but as raw material. Fairey took that photograph and began reshaping it into something completely different. He didn't just edit it, he rebuilt it from the ground up. The realistic tones disappeared. The natural lighting was stripped away. Details were reduced, simplified, sharpened into hard edges and flat color fields. What remained was not a photograph anymore, but a symbol. Red, blue, beige. A controlled palette that felt more like propaganda than journalism. Obama's face no longer looked like a captured moment in time. It looked like an idea. Something constructed, not recorded. Something meant to be remembered, not observed. And in that transformation, the Hope poster was born. At first, it spread quietly through artistic and political circles. Then, it exploded It appeared on walls across American cities, in student dorms, in campaign offices, in protest marches. It wasn't just shared. It was replicated endlessly. The image became viral before viral was even the standard way people described culture online. But the more popular it became, the more complicated its origin story started to look. Because the original photograph didn't belong to Shepard Fairey. It belonged to the photographer who took it, Manny Garcia, and to the Associated Press, the agency that owned the rights to it. And that's where the first real tension began to form. At first, it looked like a routine copyright issue. A familiar story in the media world. An image used without proper licensing, a demand for attribution or compensation, and a legal negotiation behind the scenes. Nothing unusual for commercial photography. But this case didn't stay simple for long. When the Associated Press realized exactly which photograph had been used as the foundation for the Hope poster, they stepped in. Because this wasn't just any image anymore. It had become one of the most widely distributed political visuals of the decade. It had value. Massive cultural and commercial value. And now they wanted answers. How was it used? Which exact photo was the source? Was permission granted? Was licensing negotiated? Those questions forced the situation into a formal legal dispute. And once that happened, everything around the image started to shift from creative conversation into legal pressure. Lawyers got involved. Documentation was requested. Source materials had to be verified. Every step of the creative process suddenly mattered. And that's when the story changed direction. Because investigators and attorneys discovered inconsistencies in Fairey's account of what source image he had actually used. At first, he insisted it was a different photograph, not the one identified by the Associated Press. A similar image, but not the same one. But as digital evidence began to accumulate, that version of events became harder to defend. File metadata didn't match. Editing history raised questions. Source files were missing or incomplete. And slowly, what began as a dispute over copyright turned into something much more serious. Questions about intent, about transparency, about what had been hidden. And then came the turning point. Digital forensic analysis revealed that certain files related to the creation of the poster had been deleted. Not just misplaced or lost, intentionally removed, and in some cases, replaced with inconsistent or misleading information. At that moment, the case stopped being just about art or copyright law. It became something else entirely. It became a federal investigation involving obstruction of evidence. And suddenly, the creator of one of the most hopeful images of modern politics was no longer just an artist in a legal dispute. He was facing the possibility of prison. So what do you think? Did Shepard Fairey create a completely new piece of art? Or did he cross the line and steal someone else's work? And more importantly, should an artist face prison over something like this?
You take a face from a page, trace the shape, shift the shape.